In today's episode on the life and legacy of Dante Alighieri, I'm speaking with Margherita Cavani, who has a big passion for Italian literature and for Dante. She is also an Italian teacher at the Dante Alighieri Society School in WA. So, welcome, Margherita.
Thank you, Tim.
Now, you have this passion for Dante. Tell us when you first fell in love with him.
I started studying the classic when I was at school at 14 years old, and my love for literature started at that time. At school I have also studied Latin and Greek, plus the masterpieces of Homero and Virgilio. I have almost daily chats about literature with my mother, who is very prepared in this topic. Sometimes we can arrive to have serious discussion about an interpretation or a theory or new critics. She's updated to the last articles and books on the market.
That's great, and I believe she's still in Italy, so you're getting input from Italy as well as from what you're finding in Australia.
Yes, sure. She's terrible. She has all the time news about Dante, about everything, about all the classic and literature. She's fantastic.
Great. Now, I know that you recently did a presentation, The Love at the Time of Dante, and I'm not even going to attempt to say it in Italian, but why have you chosen that as the theme for that particular evening?
I have chosen the theme of love across Dante's works because I believe it is the most precise and broad key to analyzing Dante as a poet, philosopher, politician, civic and religious activist. Love permeates Dante's entire life in all the most important areas: sentimental, religious, political. Hope not forget anything. Dante is a man with a strong passion and lives his way of living society in a very profound way. Love is the key to understanding Dante, not only the love for Beatrice, the angel woman par excellence, but also the love for God, the Church, and its legal system and the Florentine society.
Great. Now, ethically, where does Dante stand?
Dante is a very complex figure. He is a religious, intransigent moralist, because the Middle Age society has this structure, but despite his beliefs and his views, he is so modern and so innovative. Not only because he is the father of the Italian language, but also because he speaks to everybody about the human condition that is miserable if the governors are not wise and clever. For Dante, the empire and the church are responsible of the happiness of the citizen. Happiness is quite a weird word for the Middle Age, because happiness is not considered between the government. I think that only USA they have in their constitution the word happiness. But anyway, for Dante, happiness is strongly related to justice. He feels that humanity of his own time is in a miserable condition because of the original sin and for the confusion between the two powers, the church and the empire, spiritual and temporal powers. This is the base of the political view of Dante. Papato and the Impero has to be separated because only in this way they can perform their task given by God. Dante used the term autoritas to define them both. I can say that his political view was born from the desire to realize justice, freedom and happiness. All these principles must coexist to happen. He also highlights a further difference by stating that the imperial authority should deal with the creation of earthly happiness, operating according to the moral and intellectual virtues, while the pontiff should lead souls to obtain happiness, operating according to the theological virtues. Therefore, for Dante, the church and the empire are means that man can use to obtain salvation.
Certainly a very deep thinker. Now, let's touch on the life in Italy, or Florence, I guess, during the time of Dante and the Middle Ages.
Yes, it was a very Middle Age, is a very dark age. Yes, people living usually in very miserable condition. In the Middle Age, the theme of happiness was not even considered. It was the time of the Inquisition, and everybody was happy just to survive. But Dante, before that, had this view of the importance of happiness, and this is so modern, so new. During the Middle Age and at the time of Dante, the Inquisition had tribunals to sentence the heresy and witchery acts that were punished with death. All the time somebody died. The first trial to a witch happened in Florence in 1268, so Dante was there. The witch hunt against the people only suspected of witchery will officially start with Pope Giovanni XXII in 1316, because it was requested by inquisitors who felt that witchery was a great problem. I find so weird that Dante didn't put any witch in hell. My personal interpretation, this is my personal interpretation, is that he wanted to take a distance from this view of the church. He has put in hell heretics and people who did any sort of crime against the church, or better against God, but not witches. I think that he didn't believe in weird agreements between devil and women.
During his lifetime, Dante sort of transitioned a bit. He started off, I think, in the Dolce Stil Novo school. Can you tell us a bit about the poets from that era?
Oh yes, they are fantastic. I love poets of the Dolce Stil Novo. So Dante begins his literary career as a poet of the Dolce Stil Novo. Love has always been a hot topic. In a conversation that I recently had with my mother, I stressed the fact that the wife of Dante, Gemma Donati, had a rather unfortunate marriage. Dante never dedicated a single verse to the woman who gave him 3 or maybe 4 children. He's not sure how many. 3 for sure and 4 maybe. My mother pointed out to me that in Dante's time there was no talk of carnal love, and that the wife represented the earthly one, completely worthless and useless, while true love was for the ideal and idealized women, the angel woman who joined men to God. In fact, the poets of the Dolce Stil Novo raise love in its highest form using the Tuscan vernacular as their language. Their love is pure, ethereal, and spiritual. Women were angels that had the task to show men the way to God. Women meant to be angels, to be treated different from women of the real life, in a time where women were really standing on a lower step if compared to men. They had a noble soul, benevolence, and humility. They were beautiful on the inside and on the outside, because the beauty of their soul and the light of God made them extremely beautiful.
Right, now you just said that he didn't write any material dedicated to Gemma Donati, his wife, but there is quite a interaction, I guess, with Beatrice, who I think was perhaps the love of his life.
Oh yes, Beatrice. Beatrice must have been absolutely beautiful, a figure that was fantastic, and yes, dedicated to her so many things. She was the woman who wrote a sonnet that begins with "Così gentile e onesta pare." It is addressed to his great love, met for the first time in a church when they were both 9 years old. Dante fell in love with Beatrice in that occasion and loved her for life. After that time, he saw her again 9 years later, and she seemed beautiful and unattainable, like an angel. She waved at him and lived on that gesture for his entire life. So they didn't even speak each other. They just saw each other, and she made that gesture, and that's it. So Beatrice continued to be this angelic figure in all of Dante's works, who never changes love for her. The love for this woman goes beyond the physical aspect. It becomes spiritual and mystical, and Dante see her as the mean to reach the grace of God. He painted her as a woman with all the virtues of an angel, which was so lucky.
Yeah. And you've said that he regarded Beatrice, sorry, can't pronounce it in Italian, as his means of reaching God's grace. But where does God fit into Dante's life?
Yeah. So God, who is God? God for Dante is pure love and justice. Happiness come just from the sight of God for all those who are in paradise. God has created all the things that exist on earth and in the afterlife. It is said at the beginning of the comedy, when Dante introduced the Helldoor as a character. May I say some verses in volgare? Yes, I love it. Per me si va nella città dolente, per me si va nell'eterno dolore, per me si va tra la perduta gente. Giustizia mosse il mio alto fattore, fecemi la divina podestate. La somma sapienza è il primo amore. Dinanzi a me non fuor cose create, se non eterne, e io eterno duro. Lasciate ogni speranza, voi che entrate.
Great. That's a really interesting comment on the way that Dante sees Hell's Door as a person, basically. So tell me something about the door.
Oh yes, Doris is one of the characters that I love the most in the Divina Commedia. Is fantastic. Having the idea of putting a character in a door is very beautiful. So Dante put this line very hard. The door is not an object, and so, like I told you, becomes a character. Dante wanted to create a truly gloomy atmosphere to scare readers, but he cannot resist the temptation to put a ray of sunshine in these dark verses that toll like death bells. It is for this reason, then, that in the definition of the creator of the divine door, he also puts the first love, that is the love of God, who created everything. And we will see this also later, because love is one of the themes of the comedy.
Right. So you've mentioned that love is one of the themes of the comedy. Tell me where Dante actually speaks about this.
Yeah. The love investigation has always been a central concern in Dante's work, but in particular in the central Song of Purgatory. In fact, in them the moral order will be exposed, organized precisely around love, as Virgil explains in Canto XVII. Né creatura mai, cominciò l'el, figliol fu senza amore, o naturale o d'animo, e tu sai. Lo naturale è sempre senza errore, ma l'altro può atterrar per male obietto, o per troppo o per poco di vigore. Mentre ch'egli è nel primo ben diretto e nel secondi se stesso misura, esso non può cagion di mal diretto. Ma quando al mal si torce, o con più cura o con men che non dee corre nel bene, contra il fattor adovra sua fattura. These are very beautiful verses. As has been said, the generative principle of every creature is divine love. This is the part of man that makes him capax Dei, in Latin, as St. Augustine claims, Sant'Agostino. Despite our transitory nature, thanks to natural love, which we instinctively feel for the very fact of existing and which move us toward our goals, towards our full essence, we are able to strive for eternity. Having said that, one cannot lose sight of the passionate and earthly character of man. We are immanent creatures, guided by physiological instincts. We are spontaneously drawn to the beauty of the world, as a constant expression of divine power. Dante calls this feeling love of soul. The latter, however, unlike natural love, can be wrong. In loving, in fact, a choice is made. You choose what you love and with what intensity. Whether or not the love for soul is directed towards the good and in a considerate way remains an individual decision. Free will is central to this judgment. Man chooses whether to pursue and cultivate a positive love, and it is for this reason that in hell, a loveless place par excellence, souls suffer torments originating from an act of self-awareness. Each of the damned met by Dante shows full awareness of being the cause of his own evil, but it is an awareness without repentance.
So, in hell, there is this lack of repentance. Tell me more about that.
Yes, lackness of repentance is really missing in hell. So, none of the people in hell felt contrition for what they did, nor admitted their mistakes or stopped to shift the focus of their love. In hell, no one asked for forgiveness. The soul of the damned realized that they were originally called to achieve something greater, but they also know that they have failed. This is terrible. Psychological isolation and the knowledge of the underlying causes of one condition are the characteristic of an ego that torments itself. This is the case of Francesca da Rimini. Through the encounter with this character, built around a subtle psychological analysis, Dante showed the reader for the first time what the real condition of the damned is, or the inner torment of those in hell.
Thank you, Margherita, for what you've shared with us over the last short period. And I'd like to invite our listeners to be with us again next week when we're going to delve further into this academic expose on the works of Dante. So thank you for coming in today.
Thanks to you, Tim. It's been such a pleasure.